Okay, so you've got a palette here, and the first thing I want you to do, we're going to start with this one, which is the blue one. And I'll set that here. I don't know if you can still see that on the video, maybe not. I'll just move it down a little bit so that you can kind of see what's going on everywhere. Okay, so we're going to start with this sky, and you have a water brush. These are really neat. You just work with them like this and fill this with water, and then you're going to screw that back on like that. Now, this is a watercolor board. You can get it very, very wet, and I like to put a whole bunch of water. So I don't know if you can see, but I'm just like, I have a water cup here, and I've got clean water. That's kind of critical. And first I'm just going to let some water soak in. Now, it's like 100 degrees today, so this water may dry very, very quickly. But I have a whole bunch that I've just kind of soaked the surface so that it'll accept paint really well and a little more even, and it won't be so streaky. And if you put a layer of water and let that soak in a little bit, it's going to help keep some craziness from going on with streaks. So I'm going to go through here. Now, to activate, it's a little bigger than a traditional dot card. Normally you just have a little dot of color. These are Daniel Smith colors. Actually, no, they're Holbein colors, I'm sorry. They're Holbein colors. And you just wet it to activate. This one's called Horizon Blue. So you'll see it activates. Now what's going to happen, because we put water on there, see how it's not real streaky? If this were dry, and I hadn't put the water on, it would be a lot streakier when I put the blue on. Now, I like to keep adding water and move it around a bit, like this. You can get quite a bit of paint on your brush, and you know how the sky, sometimes it's a solid color, but usually you'll see some lights, some marks, and some variation in it. Go ahead, and the more water you have and the less color, the lighter it's going to be. If you think it's too dark, add some water and move it around. Just play with moving it around a little bit. So all I'm doing is laying in a sky in here. Now sometimes I might want some blue down here too. So I'm going to just do a little blue down below. Don't worry about the flowers. Just paint right over the flowers, because the color is going to not affect that. So I go ahead and I paint right over. Now, if I'm going to get a paper towel. Let's say if you see in here I have some clouds. If you want it a little cloud-like, what you're going to do is lift some of that color up. There's a couple ways you can do it. You could take the paper towel and kind of just dab some of that like that, and then smooth out the bottom side of it like that. I'm going to do that again. Now remember, this has to be pretty wet for you to get away with this. So I'm just kind of pulling some of that out, and then I'm softening the very bottom of it. But again, you need a wet background in order to pull that color up. If it's too dry, it's not going to pull it. If it stains it too much, it won't pull it. So just make sure that you work it while it's very, very wet. I could also use my finger like this, press in. I kind of like these. And another good tool that you could play with is, I didn't bring any outside, cotton swabs. Cotton swabs are like my favorite. So, it's a little windy. Put this down here. And put a little more blue near the horizon line. So again, just nice and wet. If it doesn't seem like it's wet enough, then go ahead and add a bunch more water. Okay, so we got a pretty decent sky. I can see a little bit of, sometimes it'll start to, it's called blooming. I'm just going to work with that with my clouds and add some variation in there. So there's that. Okay. Snap a quick picture. Get my extra water off my little palette there. Now the key to this is letting it sit long enough to dry. You really have to let it sit and let those colors dry, because if you don't and then you add another color, I'm going to show you on this one, it'll bloom like this. You'll see a little where you'll put a color down, and because there's water in the board, it'll go out like that. So you really want to pay attention to how dry it is. Luckily, I'm working with a pretty hot, dry day today, so this should really make a difference when we're doing this. Now, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just taking step-by-step photos while I paint this, because I painted this a number of times and I've changed it a few times along the way, just while working on it. One of the things that won't be affected right now while this sky really dries is, if you look in here, I did a horizon of more lavender. And what I used for that was a combination, this is actually a green gray it's called, and this green right here. And so, again, I make sure my brush is clean. You can wipe it, just wet it, wipe it on a paper towel back and forth and get it clean. And then I like to mix these two. So if you take some of this color and then wet this and take some of this color, you get kind of a really nice in-between. Now when you look and things are kind of fuzzy in the background, and all we're doing is filling in between these flowers and putting some color back there. So again, I'm taking some of that green, I'm taking some of this green, making it another color. And you don't really, I wouldn't go too big, but I like to make it so that it looks like, you know, we might be sitting on the grass beside the lavender, or maybe it's up on a hill and you can just see that horizon of the other plants around it. So again, mixing two different colors. I don't worry about mixing them too much, and I keep going over and I let that sit in there. So you'll see here I am, and I'm going to put a little bit of darkness back in there. And we'll go in and actually add more colors to this. But right now I just want to establish a shadowy background along the horizon line. You know, we've gone in, we set our sky, it's a pretty sky, and now we're just putting something for a horizon line in there. And that's pretty good. That's really all there is to it. Okay? Again, you're going to clean that brush really, really well. Wipe it off. And there's a fly on my lavender. He must think that it's something he can go after. Now I can tell that looking at this that it's not too wet. It's still a little wet. I put a lot of water in there, but again, it's really dry today. You can also take a hairdryer to speed things up. Just make sure you don't have any puddles. Like if I took a hairdryer to this, I got a bunch of paint sitting on top. That's gonna move around. So if you hair dry it, just make sure you don't have any puddles like that, or dab them gently to wipe some of that color up. So we're gonna start putting some darks back behind in the lavender. And, oh, first I'm gonna take a picture. So I'm gonna take a picture real quick. And what we're trying to do is, I do not want you to worry about painting in the lines. This has really well drawn little lavender buds all over this. But you'll see, all I'm gonna do is crazy dots. So don't let that intimidate you. You do not have to paint in the lines. They're there for a hint of what's going on, but I just want you to have a really good time painting. Complete with flies, because, you know, what's a good painting without a fly or two? So I'm gonna go in here. I'm not gonna do a pattern that is, you know, like I don't want even dots, because nature's not necessarily, when you're looking at something from a distance like this, you're not gonna see a really even same pattern anywhere. So I try to be a little more spontaneous. You'll see I'm not paying much attention at all to staying in lines. I'm using these to show me where the buds are, and I'm building some shape and shadow. I'm basically just putting some dots down, purple dots. That's all we're doing, is we're adding little purple dots. I can feel my table moving as my hand dots, which is funny. If I think that I'm a little too even patterned, I try to do like a little clump or space it out a little bit with just a few so that I can vary it more. So again, we're trying to establish a little bit of shadow behind some things. We will bring more purple in later after we do some color on top. So right now, I just want you to have fun adding purple dots. So see, I connected some of these to make a little less of a pattern, and it feels a little more spontaneous. I try to make it as dark as I can on this first run behind, so I didn't water it down. I get the brush tip wet, and then I roll it in that purple real well. If you feel like this brush is too big, there is a small brush in your kit, and I'll pull, it will be more like this, and you can get more detailed on there. It's gonna take you a lot longer. But everybody paints differently, and you may like that a little better, to be closer detailed and more specific. I'm kind of a crazy wild throw the color down and see what happens. So as you can see, I get to a point where it's not even dotty. I'm just kind of throwing purple around. And I like that. I want there to be some variation. I can hear my dog. He's so hot. He wants to be out here with me, but he's a brown Labrador, and it's 100 degrees, and he is just miserable. And I really wish he would go inside and in the cool air and chill out a little bit, but I love him to death. He's my baby. So he is by my side where he usually is when I'm home. Now I've got like a little thing on my brush tip. I'm just gonna pull at that and see if I can get it out. If you get something like that, just pull it out. Now my fingers are purple on my left hand. So my printing was a little off on this, so that's why the tops of my lavenders were a little pale, but again, you don't even need to worry about that because you're adding all this paint, so yours will all be good. Save the rejects for myself when I'm making your kits. Now I can tell my board is drying because it was a little bit bowed when it got wet, and now it is completely flat. You can't see that from the camera angle, but it is laying completely flat on the table. And that is your purple, which is your second step. So you'll see it's starting to look a lot like the other one. And I'm gonna come in now and add a little bit. We've got lavender, a true lavender color, which is what this next color is. If you get a little purple in it, that's no big deal. And I do the same thing, only, you know, I'm gonna fill this sucker in. So I'm gonna start filling in other areas with the lavender. I also wanna put some lavender in here. And if it is not completely dry, that is fine. It will blend beautifully. So that's how it gets real soft. You'll see some of these areas that I did in here, it's not completely dry. So it kind of helps blend it in a really nice way. Because you'll notice when you go past lavender bushes, you're gonna see green near the bottom and a lavender near the top. So we're gonna throw that down there. And then I'm gonna start adding in this true lavender color. Now if you wanna get really wild when you paint yours, if you watch the video first, you could put a mountain in and it would look like the sandias. If you had a mountain back here and just use a solid lavender or lavender with a little bit of the purple, or even lavender and the blue, and put a mountain range back in the back. I think that would be really pretty. So there's a lot that you could do with your board. Oops. And again, take your time. If you want to go real slow with this, go real slow with this. If you want to do like I'm doing, where I'm just general area. Again, I'm worried more about, you know, where are the shapes, but not worried about fitting the paint exactly in those tiny little sections. I'm just putting paint down is all. You know, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to feel like lavender. Not every stem is exactly the same. If you're looking at something from a distance, or if you don't have perfect eyesight and you take your glasses off, things get fuzzy and it's easy to still recognize what it is. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to give you the idea and make you happy and have fun painting. Sometimes I'll leave little sections. We're going to add a little bit of green next, and then we're going to add some more purple and then some dark green. So pretty close. All right, this is a pretty good set of lavenders. So we've got some darks, then I put down the light lavender. And you're gonna see, if you were to paint this again and again, like you'll see my two look different. It's gonna look different every time. Anytime you do something like that when you're painting, you're not gonna match it every time. It's gonna have a little bit of a different character and a little bit of a different feel. I'm gonna use a little brush on this one. We're gonna start putting in some little tiny green bud parts. So I'm not gonna put them everywhere. I'm just gonna put a hint of them here and there in the stems. At the base of each of the little lavender flowers, you usually see this little bit of green in there. And so that's what I'm putting in the bottom of the flowers. I also want to use this color to start laying in the base of these stems. So that's why your fine brush is a really good brush to do this with. You're just gonna do some of that. Throw a little green in there. It doesn't have to be a lot. My dogs. I heard somebody in the neighborhood. Probably the UPS guy. Now if you get too much green on here and you don't like it, don't worry, because we're going to do a final touch of purple, the dark purple again on top. So, like I said, don't panic. It's not a big deal. You also do not have to paint at the speed that I paint. I don't want you to have to look at this. Feel free to pause the video or rewatch it. I just don't want it to be torturous for you to watch the video, so try to go a little bit fast. Alright, a little spot down here, I want of that. So now we've got a little bit of that mint green. We're gonna put some more darks in next. We'll give that green a little bit of chance, but I am gonna add some purple. What I meant to say is a chance for it to dry. So I'm gonna go back to my other brush, a little more purple. And just everywhere, I think it might just need a little bit. You can even mix some. Take some of that, mix with that, and make a whole new purple, which is kind of nice. Throw some of that color on there. And only do what you think you want to do. Like if you think it's fine as is, then don't add any. Don't feel like you need to add paint just to add paint. It's not like that. See, I think that needed a little area over there. It didn't need a ton. That's it for that. All right, so I'm gonna go back to this green, this green, it's called green gray. And I want to put some more shadow kind of lines in the stems. So I'm just gonna kind of throw some of it in there. Might add some higher in there. And then this is a really good chance, even if you want a little darker, pick up some of that purple to make a darker color. And you can put a little more darkness down in there. Of course, a bigger brush helps. I'm using that little brush, so I'm gonna grab some of that, a little bit of purple, and just let it soak in and get nice and wet in the bottom. Now once your piece dries completely, you can sign it. If you have a white marker, you could sign it over a dark area, or you can leave it unsigned. The whole piece is 5 by 7. You'll see I just put it in a little, very inexpensive little frame, and you can set it out in the spring or give it as a gift. You know, paint it with your friends for a nice memory. That's really all there is to it. Have a great time making some watercolors.